The FBI began investigating claims that RICO money possibly bankrolled a remodel cafe for staff operated by Chief Deputy Chris Radke's niece, an allegation Nanos denies.
Nothing was done wrong with RICO monies or appropriation of funds in terms of any criminal activity. Were there mistakes made in the procurement process? Yes, there were, and I've corrected those.
But Dr. Richard Carmona, former U.S. Surgeon General and longtime deputy chief in the Sheriff's Department until earlier this year, believes the possible misuse of RICO money extends beyond the cafe controversy. Carmona says he's been interviewed by the FBI, and over the past year, he spoke with many officers and civilians who were also called in to talk to agents.
I said, well, what'd they ask you? And it was interesting that the pattern of questioning was the same with all of these people. And it was all about three people: Brad Gagnapane, Chris Radke, Chris Nanos.
Brad Gagnapane, the former chief of staff, Chris Radke, the chief deputy, and Sheriff Chris Nanos. Carmona says last year, while sitting in a meeting with senior command and staff, they began discussing the annual awards banquet.
This is going to be very expensive. It's going to cost $30,000 or $40,000. We don't have any money. And I was looking, I said, well, you know, let's reach out to some of the businessmen in town. Let's do this. Nanos says, Brad's got it handled. You don't need to worry about it.
At the time, Carmona didn't know that RICO money played a part.
Well, the awards banquet is held by us, and we would use RICO dollars, which is appropriate.
Is it?
By law.
An awards banquet is appropriate.
Well, let me explain to you. By law, Barbara, there isn't one penny of RICO dollars we've ever spent or will spend without going through the process of the county attorney's review and saying whether or not it's lawful or not. I'll tell you right now, do I like that idea? No, not really. But you can buy an award for one of your deputy or staff using RICO dollars.
That's true. RICO funds can cover the awards, but not food and entertainment. Kagan obtained ledgers dating back to 2009 and 2010, showing tens of thousands of dollars in RICO funds moved from the general fund to the Sheriff's Auxiliary Volunteers Account, or SAV. The list of purchased items include tuxedos, flowers, furniture, and entertainment equipment.
Basically what this is showing is that it was common practice for the awards dinners to be paid for through the SAV funds and with the help of the RICO funds.
RICO funds and individual funds were put into the SAV accounts under an account that dealt with the awards banquet.
The ledger shows a RICO deposit of $35,000 in September of 2010, labeled Special Awards Fund. Several sources have told 9 on Your Side that this practice of allegedly using RICO funds in ways they shouldn't be, from at least 2009, have continued for several years after that, including this year. Nanos told KGUN 9 the FBI has interviewed a staff member from the finance department.
And we started hearing from the financial officers saying that there was illegal activity with the RICO funds. You can't use them that way.
Remember, FBI agents were asking questions about Chief of Staff Brad Gagnapane. 3 months ago, Gagnapane was found dead, shot outside a neighbor's house. The county medical examiner's office ruled it to be a suicide. The sheriff's report shows the neighbor called 911. Sheriff Nanos and Deputy Chris Radke showed up at the scene. Within hours, Carmona began receiving calls that
and appropriate processes and procedures were not followed based on what the deputies and detectives at the scene said.
I can't believe 1 minute that anybody called Carmona. I can't believe that. But maybe I'm wrong.
In the sheriff's report, on the night of the suicide, the neighbor said Gagnapane had been arguing and texting his wife on his cell phone, but detectives were not allowed to interview her, a key witness. Only Nanos and Radke spoke to her, but there isn't a report from either one. One detective reports he was not allowed to look for a suicide note in Gagnapane's house, and a supervisor told a detective they would not be going to the autopsy, which sources say is normal procedure.
Were the detectives allowed to go to the autopsy?
I don't know why they wouldn't be. I don't know. Let me ask this. I don't know why they would go. It's a suicide.
And the public, I think, rightfully needed to know that because his suicide was coincident with him finding out that he was part of the FBI investigation.
The shame is this is a guy who spent 30 plus years of his life serving this community.
So the question
and
is then why...
Trash him. And they're going to trash him. Shame on them.
Then why?
Shame on them.
Then why did he commit suicide?
Well, I don't know his demons.
Was he questioned by the FBI? Was he a
Don't know that.
primary person
You'll have to
in the
ask-
FBI investigation?
No. I don't believe that at all.
It's an against all odds story that had many in the community cheering in 2014. Palo Verde High Magnet School made an incredible turnaround. Once a failing school, Palo Verde skyrocketed to an A in just a few years, and Principal Eric Brock, a former Titan, led the way.
Did you think that you were going to be able to do this, to turn it around?
You know, I don't think that any of us could say that we could think it. We had to know it. We believed it. We believed in the kids.
Word of Palo Verde's inspiring success and open enrollment led to an influx of new students. And then things took a turn for the worse.
As TUSD changed to a more lenient discipline policy that included restorative practices to reduce suspensions and expulsions district-wide. But sources say some students took advantage of it. Take a look at the data of low-level incidents in 2014-15 reported in the incident detail reports. Tardies, 139. Leaving school grounds without permission, 92. Disruption, 125. Defiance or disrespect towards authority, 235. In the 2015-16 school year, those reported incidents dropped dramatically, 2 of them to 0. But TPD says the behavior continued. In a letter to Superintendent H.T. Sanchez, former Police Chief Roberto Villaseñor wrote, "Some students welcomed a school with no consequences. A group of students became empowered and acted with complete disregard towards school staff and the school resource officer." Villaseñor wrote, "We experienced numerous assaults of fellow students." Sources say after the school bell rang, students roamed the halls with no fear of tardy violations, and sometimes that led to bloody assaults. Police reports we obtained show a handful of students walked or ran into classrooms and punched students in the face. And a few bloody fights between students erupted during class as students watched. Villaseñor wrote, "The school continued to withhold or minimize discipline, which further fueled students' negative attitudes, and in one case, the violence spilled off campus." This massive fight at a nearby McDonald's, caught on cell phone last September. Documents show 10 students in all. Sources say even an off-duty U.S. Marshal was assaulted during the fight, and the violence continued the next day inside the school. Police reports show a massive fight on the first floor between classrooms with a crowd of about 50 students. The next day, police returned. Palo Verde was put on lockdown after reports of a teenager with a gun. A search ended with no weapon found. Assistant Superintendent Abel Murado told KGUN 9 then and again this week that the district was investigating what could be causing the issues.
We are not going to be put in a position where our schools are unsafe.
Did you know, though, it was escalating there? That behavior problems were starting to get to the point?
There was a time period where it was evident that there was some escalation, and we were seeing incidents on several days, and some of those involving different parties.
Isn't restorative practices built so that you can prevent that from happening?
Well, we were trying. We were addressing students that either we knew were involved or some of their friends may have been involved.
Then came the death threats. Rumors of a hit list surfaced, names that included the TPD school resource officer.
Guns, assaults, death threats. The SRO feared for his life and alerted his superiors. But it wasn't just the students and the SRO in danger. Villaseñor wrote, "Students began directing their threats and disrespectful behavior towards school staff, and staff experienced numerous assaults. For example, TPD reports reveal a student delivered a powerful punch to a substitute teacher's kidney. A student running away from a classroom fight assaulted an assistant principal that left her left hand bruised and swollen. Under state law, hitting school staff is aggravated assault, but TPD reports show administrators told the SRO that staff did not wish to prosecute per TUSD policy. So while a half dozen criminal assaults took place, according to Tucson police, the assaults on staff do not appear in the incident detail report. Sources say when the SRO addressed the alarming safety issues with the principal, Eric Brock, He said his hands were tied and the district doled out the discipline.
Tucson police had enough, and TPD brass met with the district administrator.
Abel Murado. Sources say TPD brass told Murado that the progressive discipline and restorative practices were not working on some students. The district needed to hold students accountable and not sweep the severe discipline issues under the rug.
We were able to describe and discuss with them specifically some of the things that we were looking at, and basically comparing notes and looking at the discussion surrounding, what it is that we were trying to do regarding matters of discipline and what our approach to that was.
Then came the startling revelation, sources say. The district administrator said TUSD is behind the 8 ball.
Sources say Murado expressed grave concern about the district hemorrhaging students. The district is in danger of becoming insolvent and needs to keep kids in class to maintain funding.
That was not the intent of that statement. The intent of that statement was to basically draw the context and look at the surrounding factors involving the issues that are current in this school district.
But sources tell me the intent was clear. It was about discipline and the need to reduce suspensions and expulsions. Tucson police put the district on notice. Fix it, or the police department will pull the school resource officer from Palo Verde.
I don't recall that, but that doesn't mean it wasn't said. I just don't recall that.
Sources say that demand got the district's attention. Sources and documents show massive fights like this stopped, suspensions increased, and arrests declined. TUSD is currently working on a new discipline policy, a code of conduct it hoped to roll out at the start of this next school year.
But we felt that we needed more time. And we needed more time so that the training could take place ahead of unrolling something as complex and as important as a code of conduct.
Murado says the new discipline policy could be unveiled either in January or the start of next school year in 2017. So what does that mean for this upcoming school year? Murado says the district will continue to operate as it did last school year. Reporting, Valerie Cavazos, KGUN 9 on your side.
Whistleblowers have come forward describing years of deceptive practices that have been shrouded in secrecy, practices that have left many Southern Arizona veterans in pain, pleading for better care at the VA for years. Sounding the alarm since 2008, former VA Administrator Pat McCoy. She repeatedly complained to the former Tucson VA Director, Jonathan Gardner, about the unethical scheduling practices. But she says that he said the issue did not exist.
And was sort of summarily dismissed.
So she took her case to the Office of Inspector General, which launched a criminal investigation. That was back in 2014. She reported 600 requests for urology appointments stuffed into a drawer by a staff member, which stopped the appointment clock, meaning veterans with health issues would have to wait for appointments, some up to a year. The claim confirmed by the OIG in a report released last week, more than 2 years later. She reported the VA even went so far as to place phony consults into medical records to meet performance measures only. Those measures or goals are tracked by Central VA. That claim confirmed. The criminal investigators also confirmed that there were consults that employees discontinued because the requirement of waiting no more than 30 days for the next appointment could not be met.
The clerks were canceling the consults because someone above them told them they needed to meet a performance measure.
And the investigation confirmed 400 orthopedic appointment requests were on individual pieces of paper in an employee's desk instead of on the electronic wait list, and then were later destroyed. McCoy says former Director Gardner and now Acting Director Jennifer Gutowski ignored, downplayed, or dismissed many urgent wait time concerns to hide severe staffing shortages. The shortages confirmed by the OIG.
Multiple service chiefs acknowledged they were short-staffed in urology, they were short-staffed in other areas, they were short-staffed in cardiology and electrophysiology. They knew it. They were saying it back then. I heard from a nurse today who said that the bottom line in all of this is patient access to the facility, that this practice of chronic understaffing and holding off on posting positions contributes to the fact that patients can't be seen.
The report shows 2 scheduling supervisors made statements that suggested they trained schedulers to control the desired date in a way that was contrary to VA policy. The claim of managers instructing employees to manipulate patient schedules confirmed in the released OIG report last week that centered on one whistleblower's complaint, Diane Suter, in October 2014.
The manager is the one who came and told me I had to falsify the records in the computer. Told me to get out of my chair and took the computer that I was in and showed me how to do it, where you actually zero out the days. I told her, well, that's not the way I was taught. And I said, it seems unethical, if not illegal. And she says, you do it my way or the highway.
Is that manager still there?
Yes.
What you see in those 2 reports to me is pretty astounding, and that is not only were they manipulating access back when I reported them, back as far as 2008, it continues to this day.
Pat McCoy says while she applauds the criminal investigators for not only looking into the issue, but expanding the scope of the investigation, she criticizes the OIG finding that managers didn't know employees were gaming the system, and that acting director Jennifer Gutowski, who was hired in 2012 as second in command, then took over the top spot when Jonathan Gardner resigned in 2014.
She is the associate director. She is responsible, as he is. This whole pentad is responsible for what went on with this data. They're all responsible. They all knew about it. The chiefs of staff knew about it. I know they did. I told them.
I gave all the information to her.
She knows the root cause
Yes.
because you told her.
Yes.
And I sat down with the acting director, Jennifer Gutowski, who agreed to an interview for the first time since we launched our investigation into the Tucson VA.
Did you know that any of this stuff was going on? Because some of this fell under you being the associate director. Did you know any of this was going on?
We have definitely come a long way since 2014 and some of those processes that have been happening. And we have done a lot, and also just in general from the VA perspective, to improve how we're doing scheduling processes and practices.
Her response about managers improperly directing staff to manipulate schedules?
We own that in that report, and we are moving forward to convene an administrative review board to look at the allegation that's in there as been the recommendation from that report. So we own that, and we are apologizing for the inappropriate scheduling that happened as noted in that report. We own that, and we've been working since then to improve the processes and improve the scheduling of our veterans.
Is there any accountability for the people who are doing anything unethical?
As we stated earlier, we are convening an administrative investigation board, and that board will take a look into the allegations.
Could that mean that some of these people would be fired?
I think that's a little premature to say. I think the board will review the allegations and then go from there.
Although Gutowski says she's optimistic about staff's efforts to help wipe out unethical actions, McCoy isn't.
What do you want the VA to do right now?
Well, that's a huge question. I'd like the VA to hold people accountable, and they don't.